It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search it out is the glory of kings. This is the Message to Kings podcast.
Episode 360, False Justice before the religious leaders. Jesus is taken to the house of Annas and Caiaphas, and then he stands before the religious leaders, and they put the Son of God on trial. And then they accused him of blasphemy, which means declaring you are God, though you are not. It's the most ridiculous thing that may have ever happened in human history. Welcome to episode 360. Matthew 26:57. And those who had laid hold of Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where scribes and elders were assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance to the high priest's courtyard, and he went in and sat with the servants to see what happened. Now the chief priests and the elders and all the council sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. Even though many false witnesses came forward, they found no agreement. But at last, two false witnesses came forward and said, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days." And the high priest rose and said to them, "Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?" But Jesus kept silent, and the high priest answered and said to him, "I will put you under oath of the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "It is as you said. Nevertheless, I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of God sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes, saying, "He has spoken blasphemy. What further need do we have of any witnesses? Look, now you have heard his testimony. What do you think?" They answered and said, "He is deserving of death." And they spat in his face, beat him, and others struck him with the palms of their hands, saying, "Prophesy to us, Christ. Who is the one who struck you?" So there's actually three things that happen. First, he goes, so Caiaphas and Annas are relatives. One was previous high priest, one is the current high priest. He goes to Annas's house first. Then he goes to the house of Caiaphas, probably next door. And then he goes before the Sanhedrin early in the morning. Some accounts of different versions. Matthew kind of merges it all together. John speaks of him going to Ananias. Then he goes to Caiaphas. And another account has him even before the Sanhedrin. So there's three things that happen, and there's three false trials that occur for Jesus. They're illegal. I mean, they're just downright illegal. In the middle of it all, Peter's there in the courtyard, and he ends up denying Jesus. I won't spend as much time on it this episode on that. It's actually servant girls that push him. And then eventually he denies Jesus 3 times. And then the rooster crows, and what it expounds it very clearly is Luke 22:62. So Peter went out and wept bitterly. I don't even need to look up the Greek to tell you that he must have cried like a baby. He must have been on his face, snot, crying, tears. Terrible. To be in such shame and then in such condemnation, it must have been rough for Peter. I've heard it said, interesting enough, would you trust Peter before or after he denied Jesus? And the obvious answer is because he repented and because he comes back to God and because he repents after his denial. And you have to believe there's this steadfast spirit deep within him that says, I will never do that again. But it's a terrible moment for Peter. The only one really tracking with Jesus at this stage, Peter's gone. All the others we don't know, except that we know they ran away. John, who's potentially a young relative of the high priest, he's as close as he can get to this situation, kind of monitoring everything. In some way, he was immune to the probably the fears of being executed or thrown in prison for whatever reason. No one truly knows. There's a lot of theories on that. But John is keeping a bit of an eyewitness account of everything. So there's three false trials that he goes through before Annas, before Caiaphas, and then before the Sanhedrin. This is from Got Questions. The trials before Jewish authorities, the religious trials, show the degree to which the Jewish leaders hated him because they carelessly disregarded many of their own laws. There were several illegalities involved in these trials from the perspective of Jewish law. Number one, no trial was to be held during feast time. Number two, each member of the court was to vote individually to convict or acquit, but Jesus was convicted by acclamation. 3. If the death penalty was given, a night must pass before the sentence was carried out. However, only a few hours passed before Jesus was placed on the cross. Number 4. The Jews had no authority to execute anyone. 5. No trial was to be held at night, but this trial was held before dawn. 6. The accused was to be given counsel or representation, but Jesus had none. 7. The accused was not even being asked to The accused was not to be asked self-incriminating questions, but Jesus was asked if he was the Christ. I mean, the Webster's 1828 dictionary declares justice is a person getting what they deserve according to the law. Well, is that what's happening here? Or is it the opposite? Injustice. It reminds me all the way back to the days of the book of Joshua. Adonai-Jezek is the king of Jerusalem. His name actually means the Lord of Justice. So here we are again in the place where God promised to be where his footstool would be, Jerusalem. Here we are with false leaders appointed by Roman officials as the leaders of the religious leaders of the people, declaring what they believe is justice. No, it's the opposite. It's false justice. Their declaration and their trial and the results of their trial was illegal. It's not justice, it's injustice. That's what we're seeing. And we go back to that definition in the Webster's 1828 dictionary. Justice is getting what you deserve according to the law. That's a basic definition of it, but I find it very interesting. The law is also what you call the Old Testament time period. The Old Covenant was called the law. The Old Covenant consisted of all the commands of Moses and the first 5 books of the Bible, and it was the do's and don'ts of the Jewish society. That was the law. That was what they understood as their foundation, the law of Moses. The New Covenant would reflect all the foundations of the old, but it would be built upon, it would be fulfilled by the new. And it would be based upon the actions of this one, Jesus. So here we are. Here we are. Justice is getting what you deserve according to the law. Jesus is coming to fulfill the law. And he could only do it through these unrighteous, horrible men that would condemn and fall right into God's plan to allow a sinless man, a sinless, perfect, spotless lamb to be sacrificed for all of mankind. It's crazy. Jesus would actually fulfill justice at the cross. He would get what exactly justice is defined as. When you get what you deserve according to the law. False justice accused him of false things so they could put him to death. But the law says this. It says, you are atoned for, your sin is atoned for, your unrighteous acts are atoned for if you follow these commands. And Jesus, in the place of the Lamb, got what he deserved according to the law by stepping in the place of that lamb. They got what they wanted, and Jesus fulfilled the true law of Moses, fulfilled the true law of the old covenant by walking to that place. And he said, the last episode, the hour of darkness has come. Yes, the hour of darkness has come. And yes, they were allowed for this moment in time to manipulate their own law to get what they want, was to get rid of their enemy. But in the end, they destroyed their entire system. They destroyed the entire manipulated system that allowed them to have governance. And by Jesus coming in, he fulfilled the law for all mankind, atoning for ages and eons of sin. I find it fascinating. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and live according to his purpose. And in Proverbs, it's everywhere. Those who plot wicked, evil, and dig a trench for their enemies to fall in it will fall in it themselves. Here we are. They have fallen. For what they are doing right now, they're signing their own death warrant in the spirit. And unbeknownst to them, they're ending their old system, and they're allowing God to fulfill it. The death of Jesus will represent the end of the disposition of the law. And it will represent the beginning of the age, the church age, of the age of grace. I mean, can't go back. I have to do it again. I got to go back to that Webster 1828 dictionary definition of justice. The justice is getting what you deserve according to the law. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, these leaders of Israel will get what they deserve according to the law. Jesus, he will get what he deserved according to the law because he's stepping in as the innocent lamb who atones for the sins of the world. And what does he deserve? The atonement of the world and those who accept him. But what do we get? What do we get for what happens? We weren't there, but we get something. We are the inheritors, or those who are rewarded for what Jesus did. We are given the atonement. We are given grace. We are given forgiveness of sin. We were allowed to be grafted in. All of these things are given to those who believe. That's not justice. That's grace. Jesus entered this false court so that we wouldn't have to live in that old system anymore, so that we wouldn't have to walk in the justice of getting what we deserve according to the law. No, he had a better plan. He went in to fulfill it, and in exchange to give us something that we can only have if we believe, and it's free. It's his grace. It's forgiveness of sin. It's the atonement of sin so we may walk with him and know God. That's what Jesus did when he went in this courtroom. He took upon himself justice so that we could have mercy and we could have grace. And in every part of the passion of the Christ, there is an exchange that he gives us. There is an exchange that he took upon himself so we wouldn't have to suffer either. Doesn't mean our life's perfect. Doesn't mean we'll not have trials and whatever, but the atonement of sin, the forgiveness of sin, so that we be walking faithfully and connected to our God. That's what he took upon himself. Embrace that grace. Receive more and more of that exchange that he took upon himself on the cross, and quit living in shame. Quit living in do's and don'ts, and just receive. Receive what he did. Receive that atonement sacrifice for your sin forever. It's done. Let it be taken away. Quit living in the old law because it's fulfilled. It's taken care of. They manipulated that old law to put him to death. But by doing that, they did away with the law. It's not gone. It's fulfilled. So we don't have to live in it. We have to understand it. Understand its blessings and its curses, and its effects and its foundation. But then we receive God's mercy and his grace so we can walk in his truth and his love, empowered by the Holy Spirit. Receive it today. Receive his grace and receive his love. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Message to Kings. Feel free to check out the website, messagetokings.com, or if you want to chat, email us at messagetokings@gmail.com.